Healing minds, inspiring voices, living truth, making choices. This is your space. Just be you, authentically peculiar with Marcia. Welcome to a space where healing is real, where your voice matters and your truth is enough. With authentically peculiar. Season 5, the year of expansion, healing deeper, living louder, stepping fully into who you are. Authentically peculiar with Marcia.
Welcome back to Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. I am so excited about this conversation today with Lute, Bryon Smith. And of course, Lute is the nickname, but I love that. I love that nickname. You got to give us a history on that. But he is a certified life coach, a success mindset cultivator, a life purpose director, and a self empowerment rap artist that hosts the Enlightened Empowerment Evolved podcast. And he reached out to me for me to be on his podcast. And of course, we had to turn it around and do the same favor. But I wanted to tap into the masculine energy of understanding fatherhood, the father wounds that some people experience so that we can get that perspective and hopefully help other men to really embrace themselves, embrace that absence that they may have felt, and then be able to transfer the goodness over to the relationship with their children. So, Lou, thank you so much for coming on to Authentically Peculiar with Marcia.
Absolutely, Marcia. I am so thankful to be here and I appreciate you. You're welcome, by the way, and I appreciate you reciprocating and inviting me onto your platform. And I look forward to this authentic and powerful conversation. Hopefully, we learn something and other people can learn something as well.
Absolutely. So, my first question for you today is when you hear the term father wound, what
Mm,
comes up for you?
okay, yeah, I'm gonna be a bit vulnerable, as I mentioned to you, I would,
Mhm.
because my objective is to not only continue to um, become more aware to heal myself, but hopefully through my example, I can touch someone else in certain ways and help them gain a bit of clarity. But
Absolutely.
I'm just going to say this and let me know if I'm getting off topic, if I'm getting too long winded. But I just want to, and I'll try to summarize this as best I can. But let me use the best way I can do this is use myself as an example, my life, my experience. I grew up in a single parent household with my mother. And we early on, and this is not, this is just to put out there for context. This is by no way to blame or to, you'll see where I'm going with this because
Yeah.
let me go ahead before I go backwards. I've come to a place in life where I believe everything happened for me. Everything is happening for me, not to me. So I've
Oof.
learned. Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
I've learned. So let me say that no
Mm-hmm.
matter how things started out. But I grew up with single parent, my mother, and we isolated ourselves kind of from the family.
Mm-hmm.
Long story short, I didn't have much of a masculine um, energy, masculine example in my life. In my especially in my nurturing formative years,
Mm-hmm.
and I am thankful that I got to a point where I was able to see that. I even had it pointed out to me. And I'll give you the ways it was pointed out to me, like
Okay.
friends of mine and things of that nature, um, expressing to me that had their father could
Mm-hmm.
see things in me, not saying that they could notice anything homosexual or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that. And
You
I'm
have
not
more
putting that
feminine
down
energy
anyway.
because of,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
each his own. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. This is not here to talk about people's sexuality preferences or anything like that. I'm not here for that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but they could tell by the way that I processed, the way I expressed and dealt with certain things,
Mm-hmm.
and especially in regard to feminine energy, that I was more on that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I would say, paradigm,
Mm-hmm.
the feminine paradigm, the feminine energy. I was not balancing that out with more masculine energy. So I had to really work on that. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and what I'm saying is to say it's okay. It's okay
Yes.
if you're there's and I'm not saying every at the same time, I'm not saying every man out there is the same way just because he grew up with just his mom, but more than likely, and I've seen it in other men that grew up
Mm-hmm.
with just their mothers. I can see how uh, more impulsive and emotional they
Mm-hmm.
are.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
can recognize that because I recognized it in myself, and it was pointed out to me. And thankfully, I have really good friends and had really good friends that were pointing that out to me from not an embarrassing standpoint and trying
Mm-hmm.
to embarrass me, but really trying to help me see and grow. Like, hey, look, man, the way that you are navigating in these relationships with these women,
Mm-hmm.
you are
Mm-hmm.
matching their energy with feminine energy, and that's why
Mm-hmm.
you keep clashing the
Button
way you
heads.
do. You
Mm-hmm.
button heads, man, basically, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to just use it simply. You cat fighting with these women, and
Mm-hmm.
you're doing what another woman would do. And
Mm-hmm.
this is in another way, another thing. I'm not trying to just say all women are catty and all that, but
Right.
we know we have different,
Mm-hmm.
energies. You
Mm-hmm.
know, traditionally, women are more emotional,
Mm-hmm.
and men are supposed to be more logical. I mean, more of the thinking and more of the, we balance each other. And I
Right. Right.
wasn't, I wasn't that balancing
Mm-hmm.
energy. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so it's taken me a lot of time um, and effort to really look into myself and to
Yeah.
really gain that that insight on how
Mm-hmm.
to be
Mm-hmm.
masculine and
Mm-hmm.
to just really and then having examples around me,
Mm-hmm.
and there's terms out there that's thrown out there, toxic masculinity and all that. I try not to get into all that. I think it's all perspective. There's
Mm-hmm.
positives and negatives
And both sides.
in both sides. So I
Mm-hmm.
try not to
Mm-hmm.
focus on that, but I do
Mm-hmm.
know genetically and we are cut out different. Women are different
Yeah.
than men, so we're
Yeah.
never going to totally understand each other per se, but we can gain a bit of clarity on how it works so that we don't uh expect
Mm-hmm.
the woman to act like the man or the man to act like the woman, in
Mm-hmm.
ways we do with the do things like, for example, if I'm dealing, with an emotional woman, my wife or someone in my family, I can I can be more calm and realize that
Mm-hmm.
they have a lot more women have a lot more hormones and things going on,
Mm-hmm.
a lot more estrogen and things like that going on
Mm-hmm.
than than men. We have our testosterone and things like that, but just to really understand and really
Yeah.
gain that clarity, because yeah, it does help you in life when you're able to see that, hey man,
Mm-hmm.
I'm filtering through a feminine lens. I'm
Mm-hmm.
filtering through, and it doesn't necessarily mean, like I said, that you're acting quote unquote gay or
Right.
anything like that, or it can.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that was the case with me. I've always been and I'm not trying to, like I said, put anyone else down, but
Mm-hmm.
I've always been, attracted to women just because I grew up with
Mm-hmm.
my mom, and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. So it's no question on that. But just the way that I was dealing with things emotionally,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it was through what I saw, through the examples that
Exactly.
I had, and I do, with no disrespect to my mother or any mothers out there, but for the most part, a woman can't teach a man how to be a man, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Because there are a lot of things that we can't tap into as single
Yeah,
mothers.
right,
You're absolutely right.
right, right,
And we can tap into the empathic side. We can tap
right.
into the emotional side and a balance of what that
Right,
is.
right.
Oftentimes, though, when there's a single mother, she may be operating in a level of masculine energy out of force.
Yes, Yes,
because she
yes,
has to become that leader. She has to become that provider, that caregiver, that nurturer, that disciplinarian, um,
yes. That's
as a single parent. So yeah, it's a balancing act.
Yeah, and that's where we get that term strong, a lot of times strong black woman or
Hmm.
strong woman, because
Hmm.
women are, I'm not trying to say that women can't be strong and they can't
Hmm.
do
Hmm.
things that men can do, but from, an emotional, a
Hmm.
mental standpoint, we are different and we
Hmm.
need both. We
We
do.
do. And
I need that.
actually, in all of our beings, we have that feminine, masculine energy.
Correct.
I believe that it shows up in ways that it's supposed to in the time that it's supposed to show up. I was a single parent, so I thrived in masculine energy because that's how I kept my household running. That's how I kept my children out of jail and, and things of that nature with that rule of thumb. But at the same time, like you said, there are certain parts that I could not afford to my son because I didn't have that masculine, that male input to provide for him. How important is it to have that male observable relationship so that you as a man can enhance who you are?
That's very important. Now, this can get a little bit difficult because you know and I'm only going from my perspective, and then I'm going to
Hmm.
get to your question, but I just want to paint a picture. Oftentimes what I've seen and witnessed and been a part of is that a couple will create bring a life in this world, and then
Hmm.
they separate, and then one parent is cut out, and I'm only going from my standpoint,
Hmm.
from my perspective. The father is cut out. I'm not saying it doesn't happen the other way, but the father is cut out, and the woman oftentimes feels, well, I can just do this. No, and I'm not trying to say to
Hmm.
accept any father if it's really unhealthy, but then that goes back to who we're choosing in the first place. We have to
Hmm.
we have to, and we
We
all
got to
need to
choose
be held
better.
accountable on that.
Hmm.
Even myself,
Hmm. Hmm.
myself.
We got to choose
Um,
better.
you got to choose better. But at the same time, I'm not just trying to say have a male figure there, just any old male figure there.
Hmm.
But at the same time, it is very important to really watch the resentment you have towards that male because of
Hmm.
what went on between you two. If he really loves his children and can add some value to them, that is important for that especially that male to have a
Hmm.
connection with his father so that he can get some of those that mindset, that energy, those principles, those masculine parts,
Hmm.
because he will be at a certain disadvantage. Not saying that he won't be successful. No, because we've seen plenty of
Hmm.
men that grow up, with just single women be successful. That's fine. But we've seen the opposite,
Hmm.
as
Hmm.
well. So it's a mixture. But from my perspective, that is needed, because I've spent my entire life, a majority of my life not knowing, and then now that I reflect back to see that I could have been more at an advantage if I did have a male
Hmm.
figure there, a strong male figure there to show me, how to be a man. And
Yeah.
that doesn't just mean knowing how to take bullets or knowing how to
Hmm.
beat
Hmm.
people up, but just knowing how to navigate as a logical man,
Yeah.
through relationships, through life, the confidence, the leadership skills, just from a masculine standpoint.
Hmm.
And I've spent these last, years developing that on my own, and
Hmm.
purposely seeking it out. And I'm thankful that I became aware of it, instead of
Hmm.
just thinking that my definition of manhood was always to be impulsive and to think, oh, okay, if I'm violent in a certain way, if I'm trying to overcompensate. And I wouldn't have had to do that if I was confident with who I was.
Hmm.
I could have got my point across
Hmm.
without, you know,
Being
you
angry
know what
without.
I mean?
Hmm. Hmm.
Without trying to flex. you know,
Yeah.
if you will. So, through my example, I'm trying to make others aware of that too, that
Mhm.
may have a hard time um, um, being aware of that. Of hey, wait a
Mhm.
minute, how am I moving when I'm, when I become upset? How am I getting
Mhm.
emotional? Am I, hey, not saying that, like you said, we all have a little bit of masculine and feminine energy in us
Mhm.
anyway. But at
Mhm.
the same time, what lens are you really moving through as a man? I mean, or as a woman? I mean,
Mhm.
so to be aware of this. So that's what that means to me.
Absolutely. And I think that you made a couple of major points. One of the first point is when you don't grow up with that
Right.
observable relationship with the male energy, it
Mhm.
can impact your self-confidence. It can
Yeah.
impact your
Exactly.
self-worth. And you find that bravado that, "Grr, I need to prove that I'm
Right.
a strong man," that is really a message saying, I need to check in with me. Do I really have something to prove? What are your thoughts about that as you are, going through the process of getting to know you through a different lens?
You know, I'm going to use this example on your podcast, and my intentions aren't for people to take offense to this.
Hmm.
And you'll see where I'm about to go, but I'm going to use an example that everyone knows. And this is one of my favorite people ever, and that's Tupac Shakur.
Hmm.
Now, when you really watch the way he moved, you could tell that he was raised by his mother.
Hmm.
Very, very emotional, very
Hmm.
overcompensating. Not saying that, very intelligent, highly intelligent,
Extremely
but you could
intelligent. Hmm.
see that feminine energy was ruling the way he moved. That's why he was so impulsive, so
Hmm.
not logical. He could be logical, believe me.
Hmm. Hmm.
Very poetic. His mother taught him how to express himself and things of that nature. But you could just tell he didn't have that masculine energy per se, where it needed to be.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I can identify that because me the same way. That's the only reason. This is not a shot at rest in peace Tupac Shakur, because I love, you know if you can love a person without knowing them, just through their life, through the way they express themselves,
Hmm.
I connect with Tupac, and the good and the bad. And I realize, people say, oh, he was like this and did this. No, we all got levels, and I have no judgment towards him. I
Yeah.
just wish, from my perspective, he could have got to a point where he outgrew certain things, and then he could still be here with us, and to be able to witness what he would have matured into and elevated into, because I think
Hmm.
he would have done some great things. But
Absolutely.
yeah, but yeah, what was the original question? I,
So
I'm
the
uh,
original question, or one of the original questions, was
okay.
how, what is your perspective of not having that male role model and its
Mhm.
impact on self-confidence and self-worth and your own
Right.
discovery and how to, kind of switch gears to, because I can only imagine that abandonment, that rejection, that disappointment that comes up when any parent is missing, but specifically for that male child and that father figure missing. How does that impact self-confidence and self-worth?
It impacts it very strongly. And again, I'm gonna lead by example. I'm gonna show myself. I just found myself, and now I can look back and see these
Mhm.
things. So, and be able to be vulnerable to share these things. But back to overcompensating, I found
Mhm.
myself, you know, trying to prove my manhood by the amount of women that I could date
Mhm.
or be intimate with, and that's has nothing to do with manhood at all. And
Yeah,
I'm just going to say
that
that now.
notch on
We
the
we both
belt.
are meant to, yeah, we both are meant to be together, of course,
Mhm.
but bragging about that's not manhood. That doesn't to me. And that, from my perspective, that's not manhood. And people, a lot of people, I hear them still stuck in that same mindset, whether they had a father or not. And to me, that's
Hmm.
just emotionally immaturity.
Absolutely.
And I'm calling it out because I've been there.
Hmm.
So, you know, take
I
it.
love that you're calling it out
Yeah, I'm
and
calling it out
challenging
because,
that
yeah,
mindset
yes,
because the
it's
number
not
of
it.
kids or the number of people that you lay with does not denote manhood at all. Um,
No, doesn't
it,
define
it,
you
it
as a man.
doesn't. Yeah, not at
Nope.
all.
No.
How does the lack of a strong male presence show up in relationship, especially as an adult? How does it show up when there wasn't that strong presence
Hmm. Well, oh, you mean me growing up with just
with just
my
your
my mother?
mom,
Oh,
and not
just
having
yeah,
that
just
male perspective? How does it show up,
yeah,
Because
like. Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, uh, of course, we all do the best we can with what we
Mhm,
know, and my mother had to um, become that masculine figure
mhm,
the best she could,
mhm,
even though neither one of us, male or female, cannot be the other one, even though if we try, and
mhm,
no, it's just
mhm,
naturally we can't do that. But just a lot of just, I learned a lot of emotional behavior, a lot
mhm,
of there was a lot of frustration, a lot of there wasn't a male figure to help balance things out, to calm things
mhm.
down. So it was always uh, 100. So,
Yeah, yeah.
and then that rubbed off on me when I was younger, first having kids, being so emotional and being so impulsive and so triggered easily,
Mhm,
you
mhm,
know. Now these traits can, like I said, I'm not blaming this all on women because
mhm,
men can have these traits too, but overall, we are meant to balance each other out in some way. So
mhm,
historically, the man is supposed to be the one that's reassuring, that's
mhm.
calming, that's, that everything's going to be all right no matter what. And, eh, so yeah, that showed up in a lot of worry, a lot of not knowing how
Mm,
to be emotionally stable,
mhm.
um, not knowing how to deal with adversities in a calm way, but just attaching my emotions to everything, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yes, that's how it affected me. Just emotional about everything, just
Mhm.
emotional, filtering through the lens of emotion, and
And
instead of calmness and logic and certainty and strength and you know logic.
yeah, I
No,
can only imagine what that would look like because I know that with working with clients as a therapist, I often have to remind women that become frustrated with their husbands who have difficulty standing up in a role of leadership.
there you go.
Um, and I asked them, how were they raised? Who
Mm,
was in the household? What were some of their observable characteristics of a male? And the ones that I'm finding that have a lot of difficulty were raised in a single parent household and actually experienced mother wounds where
right,
they had this fight with their mother because they were fighting within themselves in that battle of not belonging and dad not being there and accepting them and things of that nature. So it comes out in their marriage that I don't have any leadership skills. And so then
right,
this woman gets frustrated that she has to maintain this leadership role when
right,
in this era of everybody wanting their soft life,
right.
uh, can't execute that. How do you help men? What are some of your messaging to men about really tapping into their natural leadership abilities?
Right. See, that's what I'm saying. That's going to take work because
Mhm.
also I'm going to say this, and I'm calling fellas out, and this is something I'm going to say towards women, not an excuse, but it's hard for a woman. That's why it's important to get to know people before you
Yeah.
really get. deeply involved, because if you can already see that this person, now we all carry some form of damage, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
and some
Mm-hmm.
form of trauma. We do.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, as a woman, if you're picking a man that has those unresolved issues, unless you're willing to sit there and go through battle and help him develop as a man, that's going to be hard. Because what I was going to say is this: it's hard for a woman, that connects with a man to really submit to her. And I don't want to use the word submit to, but to really tap into her feminine energy when she has a man that's not fully um in his masculine energy. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
That's so poignant,
Right.
to understand. I shared with a client the other day, I said, so you pretty much went into a Build-A-Bear situation
Yeah.
where you're trying to
Oftentimes we do.
build this, yeah, you're trying to build this person up to a place of leadership, and they have no awareness of what
No.
leadership is, and now you're frustrated,
Let me stop you right there.
Uh-huh.
You had asked the question, how do I forgot the exact question, but yeah, it starts with awareness. The man has to know and not just think he knows, but
Mm-hmm.
he has to
Mm-hmm.
know
Mm-hmm.
that like I'm okay with saying I hadn't fully embraced, and I'm still developing and and
Mm-hmm.
and and growing into my masculinity. You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's taken a while because, like I said, I grew up through
Mm-hmm.
femininity lens, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's worst cases where the man's, the man wants to dress like a woman maybe later or something like that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
thankful I didn't have that. So
Yeah.
I was around friends in the streets and stuff like that where I got
Mm-hmm.
some
Yeah.
male,
Some
examples.
male
So
traits.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
some male traits, but
Mm-hmm.
emotionally, in the way I thought about things, we're
Mm-hmm.
filtering through the feminine energy lens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just
And
like,
I would tell
go ahead.
women, listen, you got to know yourself too, the same way that
Right,
Lute is saying.
right,
Be mindful, men, of your own awareness and what you're bringing to the table, what your skill sets and what your deficits may be. I would say the same thing to women because everybody wants these relationships, but we're not asking a lot of foundational questions like, who raised you?
right,
What do you understand about leading a household? What's your vision? What's your
right.
purpose? What's your intent? Those are some questions that have to be raised because unfortunately, a lot of people have never even considered those questions with going into the relationship. They just know that they want a partner. They want somebody to be in
Exactly,
relationship with.
exactly,
What
exactly.
would be a message that you would share? And think about it from this lens, a Father's
Okay.
Day message to men about the importance of their roles and presence as dads.
I'm gonna rewind and say this a little bit
Okay.
first for the men out there that have grew up in similar situations, um, as I have. Don't be afraid to look within and see that you have, you know, what word am I looking for? That you're not quite where you need to be,
Hmm.
in regards to your masculine energy, because
Right.
awareness is key first. Okay, and then start, get those books on psychology, on
Hmm.
the male. Study people, talk to people who grew up with their father. Just get different perspectives. Don't just take your information from one source. Just Google or whatever. Just, look around, work on yourself, and then work
Hmm.
on how, examples of how, not saying we're going to be textbook robots, no,
Hmm. Hmm.
but just work on leaning towards that, and recognizing those traits where you're filtering more through how your mama taught you,
Right.
and
Right.
just recognizing those. And when you recognize and can shine a light on those, I think that's when the transformation can begin. So I
Absolutely.
wanted to say that first, but the question again is, I'm
The
sorry.
question would be the Father's Day message to
Mm,
encourage fathers to embrace themselves and their awareness, how would you encourage them in embracing themselves and moving into that healing journey?
Right. It's similar to what I just said,
Mm-hmm.
especially for us men of color, but men in general. Um, we have to have grace with ourselves, but we also
Mm-hmm.
awareness. Don't be stuck is what I'm saying, and think you
Mm-hmm.
know it all, or on the opposite side, think you know nothing.
Right.
Um, find a balance, a median, but work on yourself every day.
Mm-hmm.
Self reflect through every situation, especially any situation that feels we all have intuition. We know if something feels good or not. So
Mm-hmm.
any
Mm-hmm.
interaction you have with your wife, with this person, self-reflect if it didn't go
Yeah.
right. Like, I'm at a point where and I call this emotional intelligence. I don't look at myself as being weak because I let somebody out on the street call me a name and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
react to it. It's like, wait a minute,
That's
man.
strength,
My
actually.
wife, my life is more important than rolling the dice, getting into it with somebody, and they end up shooting me over something stupid, or I do
Right.
something to hurt them and I'm in jail
Mm-hmm.
or prison.
Mm-hmm.
So, unless it's something, there's no other choice. I am not getting into anything physical unless that is the last resort
Mm-hmm.
to primitively protect myself. But other than that, not saying it feels good to be called anything or somebody cut you
Mm-hmm.
off and all that, but I think now and
Yeah.
I learn, and sometimes I fail. Sometimes I've engaged,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but then I learn because I don't feel comfortable like that anymore, just being
Yeah.
any kind of way and then
Mm-hmm.
walking away and yeah, I told him. It's like, wait a minute, man, that didn't make me feel good right there.
Mm-hmm.
What could
Mm-hmm.
I do better next time? So you better prepare. But also, like I said, ways you deal with your spouse, there should be a balance there, you
Yeah.
know. And you know
Mm-hmm.
it because we
Mm-hmm.
still have things in our DNA, whether we were raised by a woman or not, that knows what's uncomfortable. Tap into that.
Absolutely.
Don't ignore that voice there to say, wait a minute,
Mm-hmm.
should you be dealing with your woman like this? Should you
Exactly.
you know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and encourage, and I'm gonna tell you this much. When you take that type of role of even developing yourself, your woman's gonna see that, and she's gonna follow that too, and she's gonna, for the most part, and she's gonna see
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing, and then she's going to tap into that too, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so
And set, because even though they always say women set the temperature in the
they
household,
do
no,
in certain
they
ways
to a degree, but
to a degree.
men set the temperature in the household when they show
They
up
do,
as
they do.
leaders, when they show up as visionaries, when they show up as protectors.
Yeah,
Women will sit back and be like, cool, baby, what you need? Let me help you get that
exactly.
S on your chest. But it
Yeah,
has to be a situation where they're both operating in their authentic space and sitting down, getting to know who they are. We all are still growing, even for those of us that people come to us for advice. We're all still
right.
growing in that space. So I'm going to switch just real quickly. Tell me, how do you resonate with the idea of being authentically peculiar?
Mm, peculiar. How do I resonate with?
Being authentically, so this is authentically peculiar with Marcia. How do you resonate with being authentically peculiar, or how does that resonate with you?
Hmm, I'd say that resonates with me with just, I don't know. I'd say that I question everything.
Mhm.
Awareness is what I pride myself on, and just being a student,
Mhm.
being a I have to be a student to be a teacher, but just working on myself, I would say.
I love
Am I
that.
answering the question?
You are you're you. The fact that you said, I resonate with authentically peculiar because of self awareness. That's
Right.
huge
Okay.
because we have to be aware. If we're not aware, then we're not going to heal. If we're not
Right.
aware, we're not going to confront what's happening within us, the things that may have hurt us, things that shaped us that we have to now reshape. That
Yeah.
awareness is huge.
Yes,
It's
because
huge. So you answered that to the T. I
okay.
appreciate that.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes, because I feel if I wasn't aware, like for the longest time, I wasn't aware that I was operating from a more feminine aspect of feminine energy, and especially in regards to my relationships. You know,
Hmm.
I had defined masculinity as being the one that could yell the loudest, being the
Yeah.
one that when I say something, you better not say. Wait a minute,
Hmm.
man.
The
I had the
bravado.
yeah, I had a toxic uh, definition of
Mm.
being a man, being masculine, and
Yeah.
how could I know? I came up with my own definition. I didn't
Hmm.
have
Hmm.
anyone to show me from an intellectual standpoint on what it was to be a man. I didn't have that example around me, you know, at least a close example that could really impact me. So I came up with my own, which, was a street version of how a man should be, or
Hmm.
a player version, a pimp
Hmm.
version. It's like no,
Hmm.
no, 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 no. All unhealthy examples of how to be
Yeah.
masculine. And
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm certainly glad that you got on that journey and
Hmm.
that so many men will be positively impacted with your vulnerability and your
Right,
transparency of the importance of understanding balance in all things and self-awareness. That is the biggest message that I want the men to take away today on this Father's Day message is self-awareness is everything. That becomes your superpower
right,
because you can trust in you to change you without waiting for other people to validate you. Self awareness is huge. So, men, tap into that. So, Luke, tell everyone how they can make contact with you, how they can connect with your life coaching program.
right. You can easily the easiest way. Look, I'm going to give you my email 333 empower empower at gmail.com. You can send me a message. I got a website as well,
Mhm.
333empower.com.
Go out
Um,
there and get some of those fire t-shirts.
yeah,
Listen, y'all,
the
you got to
merch,
go
the
out
merch.
there and get some merch because I'm telling you, the t-shirts are talking.
Right.
Literally. So go out there to that website. I'm waiting for mine to come in the mail.
Yeah, I got
Go
it. I got
out
to send it
there
to her. Once I
because
say something, that's my word is bond. So I owe her. I owe Marcia some t-shirts, and
that's
that's
okay
my
because we gonna get
yeah.
it. We
We gonna get it
exchanging
right.
merch
We
anyway.
yeah,
But
we
I
gonna
just
get it.
want everyone to know that the voice that you bring to life is
Right.
empowerment. The presence of self awareness is empowerment. And I
Right.
can't thank you enough for taking time today with me to be on Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. Listen, y'all, go out there. I'm telling you, don't miss the merch. Don't miss the merch at all. Cause I'm telling you, the shirts are talking. They have messages. It's not just, little fluffy things. It literally has messages in them. So go out there, hit that website. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and follow Luke on Facebook. Follow
Yeah,
him.
if you go to my, and I'm sorry,
No, go
Marcia.
ahead. Go ahead.
If you go to my website, you'll see the links to my social medias at the top. You'll see
Mm-hmm.
my Facebook, my YouTube, my Instagram. I don't have very many socials. I think just those three. But yeah, I also have. You can go to my YouTube and see the episode of the podcast that I had with Marcia as well. So yeah, check out the website. I'm sorry. Go
Check
ahead.
out the web. No, check out the website. Listen, Like, subscribe, comment on my interview with Luke on his podcast of empowerment, as well as this one. Our voices have to be out there, and we're trusting you to put our voices out there to gain some insight from what we bring to the table. And just remember, in all of your doing, always be authentically peculiar. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for sharing time and space with us today on Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. Don't forget to like, comment, and share the podcast with everyone that you know. In addition, go out and support each of the guests and their own social platforms. Buy their products, leave them a comment. We'll see you on the next episode of Authentically Peculiar with Marcia.